Here's some of the issues with this top that we're going to work on repairing. So there's a crack, which seems to be pretty customarily. It's where they glued these tops to the sides. So got a crack right there. Started sanding on this. Sands fairly easy. I'm going to get some coarser sandpaper. This is 120. I'm going to get some 80. But it's a crack all the way through here. So we're going to fix that. The rest of this side looks pretty good. I ordered a new hatch, got some issues. We're gonna get another one. A little crack here. I have to build that back up. This right here is split, but I've already cleaned it out, and I think I can just put some resin in there and clamp that back together. Same thing right here. Got a crack on this. No other cracks on the outside other than right up here. So same issue. So we'll go in. I think that's just, well, that's a little bit of a crack right there. So we'll have to cut that out, see what we can do with that. Front of this actually looks pretty good. We'll get it all cleaned up, but there's no real cracks in it. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start by sanding this down, get us a little margin that we can put some resin in, and then start filling it back up with some glass to get it fair and smooth. All right, step 2. I ground all this fiberglass down. And you can kind of see, it's kind of hard to tell with this ruler, but I got kind of a fat 1/8 of an inch gap across here so that I can layer this fiberglass in 2 or 3 different strands across there. I did it on each of these. Yeah, it's not really evident. Not real evident with the shadow in the deal, but there's about an 1/8 of an inch gap in there. So did all 4 corners, and now we're gonna lay in some little strips of resin and some fiberglass mat. So I cut a strip, I pre-wetted it, and now I'm just coming in and thoroughly saturating this fabric, this mat down into this resin. You want to get it really thoroughly saturated because you don't want any air bubbles in there. And I'm hoping that I can get enough in here to get, I'm hoping I can get enough to get at least another layer of mesh mat over the top of this. Kind of hard to do this and film it. Not a helper, but you get the idea. On this back piece, I wetted it, put a little small piece folded in half in there, and then I laid this other one right over the top of it. And I'm just trying to kind of stick it up in there. I hope y'all won't tell my wife I used her bread clip to hold this paint paddle wrapped in parchment paper behind it, but as long as y'all keep that little secret to yourselves, should be good to go. So that'll get a patch in there. Then I'll come in here and sand those burrs off and then put one more piece over the top of it, sand it flat, and we should be good. Do the same thing up here. Well, I got bad news. I was gonna just fix this and move on, but I figured this was a teachable moment. That I don't know what happened, but this fiberglass never set up. I mixed it the way it said, 14 drops to an ounce, relatively new resin, I bought it 2 or 3 months ago, but all the way around, all of these spots just turned to goo. So I'm gonna get some acetone, wipe all this back off, get a different resin, and try it again. Teachable moment. So I mixed up a new batch, and I'm gonna just do a 1 ounce sample here. I'll put 15 drops in it out of a different resin and a different hardener. And I'm gonna make sure this sets up before I put it back on here. I did notice that this is the hardener I used, and this has never been opened. In fact, I punctured the seal and the lid, yet I put 30 drops out of this and it's nearly empty. And I notice I've got another hardener here that's older, and this hardener here has never been opened, never been punctured, and there's no hardener in it. So the hardener just dissipates out of these plastic things. Strange. So we'll see if this sets up. So 8 minutes in, this is starting to congeal and kick off. So something's wrong with that other resin or the hardener one. All right, that was just bad hardener, because this is set up hard as a rock, and this is about 8 minutes in with 15 drops, and it's already congealing and setting up. So I've now redone this. I've got all 4 of these gobbed up with a little bit of mesh. You can see it's saturated, soaking through. And I built up these 3 little bad places here on the lip with a little parchment paper backing. So we'll get this set up, and then we'll sand it back down and then put another layer over the top. So back on track. Now that I've got the first coat of matte on, so you can see that's just a matte structure. Now what I'm gonna do is come back in and lay another layer of this woven fabric. The woven fabric will give it a more strength. So the matte kind of seals it up. Put this on there with the woven fabric. That'll give it some structural integrity. And we'll do the same thing on these little pieces here. I just hit it lightly with a sander just to knock the high spots off. It's not really necessary to sand between coats. When this stuff is working right, you got a limited time of working time. So this is a batch I just mixed up, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, maybe less. You can see it's pretty much congealed and it's already knocked off. So I'm just mixing these in little 1 ounce pill cups from the late Winnie Drago. And you know, this is about 1 cup is about 1 of these patches. So I did about 4 different little 1 ounce cups because it kicks off pretty fast. So you got to work quickly in order to get it done. And here it is with the fabric all wetted in. You can kind of see, you just got to dab it a little bit, and it's going to have some runs. I put some paper just to catch some of these runs. And I got these all built up. And once I think I got it built up enough that when I sand it, it'll come in flat. There might be a little divot left in this one, but these up here, and I put a little bit of hair up on this just to fill a hole. This one should be fine. This one should be fine. Should be able to sand those down. And we got these 2 all fixed up, so we should be about ready to maybe put 1 more strand, 1 more little woven fabric, build it up, and it'd be time to sand it down flat. Okay, a little sander from this to this. We'll do some finish sanding, but we pretty much got it where we want it. After about 3 days of building this up, I've now got this really nice and flat. I got this little bead shaped. I got all these deals. It's just got a little slight indentation, which I'm gonna put some body filler in there. I kind of left it that way intentionally. I got all these things rebuilt, fared back in, all of them, holes all look really nice. So at this point, I've done kind of a mild sand all over the whole sides. This all filled in too. Again, got just a slight indentation right here that I'm going to use to come back in and put body filler directly over fiberglass. Z-grip lightweight filler will go right over that. Each time it took about 4 ounces. I mixed them up in a 1 ounce cup for more or less each one of these pieces. Took about 4 ounces total. And I think I did about a total of about 5 layers of buildup. So took a little time, but we now got that just about ready to go. So I'm gonna put on some body filler, see if I can get these fared really nice, and then I'm gonna be ready to take this top off and put it on a rotisserie so I can spin it upside down and work on the inside. Body filler's on. I put it on just a little bit thicker so that I can just sand it down. I've tried putting it on thin and building it up. You just wind up doing it multiple times. So this is, I mean, it's still not but about, maybe 10 mils thick, but you can see just, you know, I just pushed it on, spread it on, and it's been sitting maybe 3 minutes. As soon as this kind of starts to turn green, you can go ahead and start sanding it. And I use these black diamond blocks. These are badass blocks. They're expensive, a couple $100 for 2 of them, but they have polycarbonate on them, and these rods go in here to make it stiff. And so you can see, just once this gets kind of green, you can start sanding it. And if you sand it with these polycarbonate blocks, then it will be glass flat when I get done. So I'm gonna put the camera down and do a little sand in here, and I'll show you what it looks like. And after about an hour of sanding, we got this all fared in nice and smooth. Got the little edge cut in here, got all these grooves cleaned out. And just so there's no confusion, you can see how thin this is. I mean, I'm just about sanded through the Bondo. So all I'm doing is lightweight filler. It's not really Bondo, but all I'm really doing is just using it to fill in any kind of fiberglass holes, little air pockets. I got all of these little reveals shaped nicely. I kind of eased the edge around here just a little bit. So this is all, I think, ready for a little high build primer. And we should be good to go on this. I got all these edges back here fixed. So all of these came out really nice. Doesn't look like it's ever been broken. There's 5 of these. All the edges are filled in nicely. So we'll do a little bit more final prep sanding and then shoot some primer on that. And this thing will be good to go. I did use about almost everything on the fiberglass. I used a D8 sander. This was 60 grit, which seemed to work pretty well. I do have a little end die grinder with a wheel that I use for some of these inside the curves where you couldn't get to. So just about everything on the fiberglass I did mechanically with sanders and kind of 60 grit paper. Then on the Bondo, I did all that by hand with a polycarbonate block with 80 grit paper. And even 80 grit on a block is pretty smooth. So when you put some high build on there, I might sand it a little bit with like 120 before I prime it. But so everything was pretty much done with 80 grit. And like I say, all the filler was done by hand. All the fiberglass was done mechanically by pneumatic grinders, sanders. So hope that helps. Now I'm preparing a rotisserie to be able to get this thing up in the air and turn it upside down. There's several cracks on the inside that are gonna have to get fixed. So I've stripped this thing out, and I took 2 2x4s, unbolted this thing, working by myself. So I lifted it up with a pry bar and got 2x4s underneath it, enough to get a 2x4 on each side. I put 5 bolts in here. 2 of them are 2.5 inch, 2 of them are 4 inch, and I made these 1.5 inch square tubing bars. And this is, and I put a little clip on here. This is gonna sit on the rotisserie frame I'm fixing to go make. And I'm gonna use the rotisserie frame to also set the body on when I'm done. So kind of using dual purpose. So now I'm gonna go figure out how to get this rotisserie frame fabbed up And I'm guessing that this top with no glass, no hatch, weighs about 350 pounds. I can lift, you know, one side of this relatively easily, one corner, probably 75 pounds, maybe 80. So I think all told, I'm guessing this is a 350 pound top. So let's go get the rotisserie made. Clean up, get this mounted up on the rotisserie. All right, we got the top slid onto the rotisserie. Putting some clamps on here to hold it in place. Welded some little tabs on these braces underneath here. See it right there. So that keeps this thing from kind of sliding. And I think we're pretty much up where we want to be. We made this the height so that we could use this same thing to get the body on, and then be able to spin it with the same rotisserie. All right, this wound up being just dead nuts fucking perfect. So we spent a lot of time concentrating on where the center of gravity is on this top. And we initially started out that it should be up here, but this is a single surface top. And I think the top weighs about 350 pounds, so the top doesn't weigh but about 100 pounds. The two sides probably 75. And this frame with 11 gauge tubular rectangles weighs 150 pounds. So we kind of rationalized that the frame and the top were about equidistant, and this is just about right. There's almost no resistance either side.
You got about an inch there, and you still got your hand hold.
And I made these bars longer than the top so that we had a handhold to lift it off. We did it with two of us, but ideally you would do it with 4 guys. And so it just goes right around, and it's kind of perfectly balanced. So when I did this, hang on right there, Mike, there's a 2x4 on the bottom and then 1.5 inches. So this top rail is 3 inches from the bottom of the top rail, and this center line is 7 inches over. So if you make one of these and you build it with a 7-inch center line and figure 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches to hold the top, it's perfectly balanced. So I've now taken this top and with a big 8-inch D8 sanders, cut all the texture off to get it smooth, and then I've gone in and I've filled with filler 32 different dings, scratches, and marks, and now I'm just going back in and sanding those out with a polycarbonate block to get it nice and flat before I put Raptor over the top in a GM white tint. So this is pretty much what this top looks like. It's pretty scarred up, and I don't know what all this black stuff is. It almost looks like concrete, but it's got some pretty serious scratches in it and these concrete splatters. So I've got a 10-inch orbital sander, and you see I've already done the top half on the rotisserie. So I've got this big 10-inch, and it does a really nice job of kind of sanding it flat. So I'm going to go over this whole thing, and then we'll pretty much have it all sanded up. Now I got this top sanded, and I'm trying to pay some really close attention to these details. these drip rails had a bunch of seam sealer that was really combobulated and not very smooth and kind of a mess. And I saw two Blazer tops that had been done really nicely at a Good Guys car show this weekend. And it was clear they had paid special attention to this detail. So if you want to really clean this up, I took a little wheel and ground this seam sealer out so there's a trough. I've then taped this right to the edges so I don't have to sand so much. And then I'm going to put a little filler right in that gap. And while it's still wet, pull this tape so that it fills that gap and makes that smooth. So this up here is where I've done this up here. And this is smooth as a baby's butt. So, not that I touch a lot of babies' butts, but it's really nice and smooth. And when we put the finish on that, that'll really clean that up nicely. When this top is where it's supposed to be, this edge right here is very visible. So that's gonna have to get cleaned up. I did a little further work to fill in this little spot here. I gotta sand this back down, but you really want to pay close attention to getting these details. And I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. I'll show you a little bit on the inside. I'm going to clean that up. So this is kind of what this seam sealer in here looks like originally. I hope you can see in there. And it's pretty shitty. So I'm not going to be happy with that. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you how to grind that out with a little drill to get down into this, so you can get down into this groove, and then put some body fill in there and smooth that out. Sorry about the focus. Smooth that out so that looks and feels right. So I got a cutoff wheel on a end of a die grinder, and I just very gently came in here, guiding it with my hand, and ground this little crack out right on the inside of this. And now that I got it ground out, I cut a block the thickness of this. I got sandpaper on here, and I'm coming in here and just sanding the back side of this groove so that it gets this really smooth. Then I'll show you how to tape it off and put some filler in there. So I got this filler in here, and I got a glove on here so I can just come in here and wipe this clean. Try to minimize how much sanding I gotta do to get that really nice. But if you do that, just like this, it'll put that filler in that gap. Then I can do just a little bit of light sanding with 180, and it'll make this really come out nice. You can't really see the part up on the top, but you can definitely reach up there and feel it. Okay, so I got that off of there. And then I'm gonna just come in here, and while this is just put on there, pull this tape. Taped it where it just covered the outside edge and then wrapped just slightly around that. If you wait to pull the tape, the Bondo gets hard. It's actually a Z-grip, but it gets hard, and then it's really hard to get it off. So you want to pull this tape before it's really set up. You can let it set up a little bit, but you want to get this off of here. Okay, so now you can see how nice and smooth that is in there. I think you can. So we'll come back and sand this, and then put some high build primer on it, and that'll be really nice. Okay, I've spent a total of about 16 hours working on this top, just sanding and filling. And I think I've got everything pretty much where I like it. I got all these gaps on these drip rails, the seam sealer pulled out. I got all that stuff cleaned up and nice and smooth. Got all the holes knocked out of it. I filled all tree limbs and scratches in the top. I came in here and I cleaned up all these inside. There's quite a consternation here because some of these gaps, like there's a groove right here. And that groove is kind of supposed to be there. That's where they made the top. They made no attempt to fill that in. Some of these other grooves were filled with glue to be smooth. So I've gone back and actually dug out the cracks which were supposed to be there. And I put a little filler in there, but I left the gap. And then I filled the rest to make them smooth. I also came in here and I drilled out this plug. I don't even know what this plug was, or actually it's this plug. I don't even know what this plug is for. It has a 7/16 fine thread, you can see it in there, fine thread in it, but it has a rubber plug. I filled all these holes, I got them smoothed out. I also came in here and took out all these rivets and replaced them with good rivets. Some of them were really beat up and scarred up, so I did one at a time, sanded around it as I took it out, and replaced all those rivets. Did it on both sides, cleaned all that stuff up. I rebuilt this lip. There was 5 different places where various and sundry things had gotten into it. I came in here and dug out this seam sealer, cleaned up this whole thing here. So there's 2 days getting it to this point. And I'm gonna shoot some high build primer on it. At a certain point, you can't tell what you got. So I'm gonna shoot some high build primer on it so I can sand it, and then it should be ready. None of this time involves this hatch. So I bought a new hatch from Motor City K5, and I'll put the new hatch in. I've had it in and aligned. I gotta get I rebuilt the hinges. The hinges are right here. I'm gonna rebuild the pins in those. So I'm gonna get it all lined up, and then I'll paint it when I do the Raptor on the top. So at this point, I'm ready to shoot some primer and kind of see what we got. Well, I'm back on trying to finish this hatch. I set it aside because I was waiting on a new hatch. Got it in, got it fitted. Everything fits really nice. This is a Motor City K5 hatch. I put it on the roof. I fitted all the sides, so I sanded them so they're exactly parallel to the insides. The original, we've done a fair amount of checking on an original unmolested K5, and these hinges and these cover plates, these were all textured with the texture. So I've gone ahead and put these in, indexed them to where so I can realign them on the car, install these cover plates. Even the screws were textured. So I did tape off where gaskets go so that I don't have a bunch of texture where I really want good adhesion on the gaskets. So I've got those taped off, and I taped off the window so the gasket will slide in a little better. And now I'm just going through and sanding this so that I can get it ready to apply texture. Well, now the top is U-fold Raptor. This was not an easy task, and it took 6 bottles to the last drop. I'm just hoping I got coverage everywhere. But if you're gonna do this, you're gonna probably really need to order about 8 bottles of that stuff. I think 6 comes in a kit naturally, so you probably have to get 2 kits. But I filled up all the little holes with bolts so I wouldn't get Raptor in the holes. And I'm pretty pleased with it. It's got a pretty even finish and looks to me to be pretty close to the original. I did the hatch. I did it hanging this way so I could paint the hinge bolts the way you would see them. And then I dropped it down in order to get it painted on the surfaces. I did the inside first. I don't really see how you could do this without a rotisserie to be able to flip this thing around, but it looks like it's got gray spots, but those are just shadows. So So I taped off the areas where the gaskets go so I didn't get extra stuff in there, and pretty happy with it. I think it actually looks pretty good. And when I set up to do this, I sprayed a series of test panels on some cardboard, and I'm not sure you can really see. That's a pretty good image right there. You can see the texture. And with the gun that comes with the kits now, this is with the nozzle screwed all the way in on low to medium pressure. So I tried it with high pressure, low pressure, nozzle in, nozzle out. I tried it with 15%, 10% thinner, and then 15% thinner, all of which you can do with the tenable Raptor. And at the end of the day, I decided to go with it unthinned, and with a nozzle in with low pressure, low to medium pressure, which was about 35 PSI at the gun. So we're gonna let this sit for a day or two, make sure it hardens up really good, but I think we got it done. Okay, top is Raptored. I think it turned out pretty good. You can see the finish there. I think it's pretty close to what would have been on the original one. And I did this with kind of low, the nozzle in with low pressure unthinned on the Raptor. It took 6 bottles exactly to get all this done. And I wish I'd had another half a bottle just to make sure that I don't have any thin spots, but I think I'm okay.
Download the Resto-Rat app today to begin managing, tracking, and documenting your restoration project.